Let's take a look at this institutional crypto newsletter that is making a profit of $182,900 per year and recently listed for sale at an asking price of $549,000. That works out to be a 3x profit multiple. I think this one is going to be very interesting because of this 94% margin. And also because it's a newsletter business. Newsletter businesses have really kind of been trending for the last couple of years as content websites have taken a nosedive. I guess no other way to say it. Over the time that we've seen Google kind of wiping out content websites from the rankings, driving more users to paid placements, their ads, and ultimately I think users overall are shifting to other mediums like AI to find content online. Newsletters have been where a lot of content businesses, or newsletters have filled the void where content businesses would have been started. And that has been made largely possible due to Beehiiv. That is one of the software platforms that facilitates it. The other one out there is Substack. And I run this newsletter, the Acumen Wire, on Beehiiv. And if you're interested in acquiring an established and profitable online business and you like my quick take on the businesses, you're going to want to sign up here for the newsletter. I send out these online businesses as I find them interesting and also established, profitable, and time tested. That is my focus. Anyways, let's get into this listing here more. That is on acquire.com. It is making $195,000 a year in total revenue, profiting $182,900. So there's only like $13,000 of expenses there. My gosh, this looks awesome with that 94% margin. And it has an annual growth rate of 24%. They describe it as an institutional crypto newsletter with 340,000 subscribers. We know the profit, we know the margin. It is a weekly institutional crypto newsletter, so we know how frequent it is. Read by industry insiders, hedge fund leaders, and Web3 developers with 340,000 subscribers, 255 weekly issues since December 2020. It delivers trusted insights and premium sponsor exposure in a high-intent niche. It's built on a lean Beehiiv/Substack. It's simple to operate, highly profitable, and primed to scale, ideal for a media operator or brand seeking instant reach in crypto. The owner is moving on to a new venture. We got the details. We've already got all these details. They've had 10 to 50 sponsor customer subscribers, ad-only model with room to add paid products, runs on lightweight tools, clear growth levers include SEO, social media, improve conversion rates, expand into new markets, higher sales, all the common stuff, nothing really in particular there. It's an established brand in the institutional segment. And they justify their asking price here by saying the asking price is profit-based, trailing 12-month revenue of 195, SDE 183, with 24% growth. Price is roughly equal to SDE times 3, which is within the typical 3 to 3.5x for the profitable newsletter. Cash flow quality is strong, last month margin at 88%. It's a sponsorship-driven model with 50 plus subscribers over the year, 50 plus sponsors over the years, which supports its durability of earnings. Come back and talk about that. I think that's important. Any other details here? 10 to 50 customers, churn rate 10%. They make money by selling sponsorships in our weekly newsletter. Tech stack is Beehiiv and Substack, which is odd that they're saying both of them because it's really one or the other. To my knowledge, they don't have any overlap. It's kind of like you use one or use the other. They've got some competitors, and then they spell out the growth opportunities again right here. And he's selling, the seller is selling because he wants to build another company called SaaSRise. All right. Yeah, so the margin looks good here. I like the margin. I like the 24% growth trend. I like that it is weekly and not daily. I like the low expenses. There's a lot to really like here. What matters, though, as the buyer? And that is going to be how well you can sell the sponsorship placement. So if I were looking into this seriously here, I would want to flesh out how they are getting these 50 plus sponsors. Here they say 10 to 50. In another line, they describe it as 50 plus. So I'd want to know exactly how many they've had and how they are getting them, right? Is there like a system for getting them, or are they just getting them because the seller of this business is in the business in some other capacity and is selling to other people that he knows and his network? That is really, I think, the primary driving factor behind success in this business is you have to get people sponsoring this newsletter. And I don't know how hard or how easy that is to do, but my own intuition tells me that would be pretty difficult. But that said, I've never really been very successful with direct sales. I'm more of an online e-commerce transaction style person. I don't really like doing direct sales, but maybe the seller has this all systematized and figured out. I would really want to know what they got going on. Just my intuition here, looking at the margin and the room for expenses, or the expenses that they have, is it's very low. They don't have enough room in here for a salesperson, right? I feel like this is just really a writer. Maybe they do have an outsourced, low-cost overseas salesperson facilitating it. But yeah, you don't want to smoke out how that's happening, right? Like, are they running outreach, or are the sponsors just coming into the newsletter because they're subscribers and sponsoring? How much, how often do they repeat, etc.? How many have they had in the last 12 months? Because maybe they got, maybe they had a bunch of the 50 subscribers or sponsors, in the first 2 years while while crypto was really trending in that kind of 2020 to 22, 23 bull market. But then they didn't come back on board, and for the last 12 months, they've really only had one. I'd also be very curious to see how the subscriber revenue went through the 2020 kind of 3 period where crypto was just in a very strong drawdown and there wasn't much happening in the crypto space and everybody in the crypto space was broke and out of money. I'd be interesting to see how that is. Either way, if you buy the business, you'd certainly want to plan on this being very successful or cyclical. Of course, we want to buy and plan on being successful. Yeah, no, cyclical. Crypto's in a bull market, you're printing money in this business. Crypto's in a bear market, you ain't making no money, right? And to a much lower priority, how easy is it to get subscribers, and where did these subscribers come from? These are, the non-paying people that read the newsletter. If you're making enough profit and monetizing it at a high enough level, you can run ads to get subscribers, right? Like the math works out there. But you got to be getting these sponsors in here, and you got to be getting sponsors that are paying top dollar. So on that note, what do we think about the valuation here? Well, my take on the valuation is always going to consider this 24% annual growth rate. Now, this is a newsletter business model, and I think that really, to kind of assign a solid multiple to it, we have to understand how easy they're getting the sponsors. And I think if they've got sponsors coming in because they are reading the newsletter and finding it organically, I think that this business would be, on the high side, say 3.5x profit multiple. On the low side, maybe a 2x multiple if they're really, reliant on the seller's network to get the sponsors. Or if they're really reliant or dependent on the seller's network, I think the multiple is effectively 0 because you can't buy this business. It's just not transactable. But, somewhere in that 2 to 3.5x multiple, 3 is certainly in that range. But then we have to consider this annual growth rate here. Now, that is historic, but if it continues going forward, let's just say that it does continue growing forward, going forward, and we just say that's 182.9 times 1.24. Based on the future, earnings here, you're paying a much lower than a 3x multiple for it. That is something to consider, and it's nice to see these cases where it's like, yeah, all right, the valuation multiple is reasonable, and it looks even more reasonable considering the future growth. Ultimately, though, as a buyer, you have to make the analysis and decision of what the actual future cash flow from the business is going to be. And multiply that by the valuation multiple that you assign to the business as a whole. This one here seems to be reasonably valued and really quite interesting. Nifty little newsletter business here. I kind of like this one. What's your take on this business? Let me know in the comments below if you feel like there's anything I overlooked or missed out on regarding this business listing. I'd love to hear from you. And on that note, if you found this video helpful and insightful, you know the drill. Smash that like button to help me out in the YouTube algorithm. I'm calling it a wrap and signing off on that note.